If Ghosts and Ghouls and the Wizard of Oz had a weird, slightly evil baby raised inside a malfunctioning pinball machine, you'd get Wardner.
Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
This is a game where fire is your worst enemy, platforms are optional, and the developers clearly woke up one morning and said, let's make something that looks adorable but crushes your soul. You play as Dover, a small, hopeful kid armed with the bravery of a hero and the jumping power of a wet sponge, on a mission to rescue his kidnapped friend from a wizard who definitely peaked in villain school. Right from the first level, Wardner doesn't so much welcome you as it does launch you face first into chaos. You've got fireballs flying, bats swooping in from the next postcode, and moving platforms that seem to disappear purely out of spite. The game's like that one mate who insists they're just teaching you, but really just wants to watch you suffer. And just when you think you finally got a handle on it, something random pops out of nowhere to remind you that confidence is a mistake. The enemies come at you in this game like they've got a personal vendetta. You can almost hear them saying, oh, you thought this was a chill fantasy adventure? That's cute. And don't even get me started on the bosses. They look like rejected Pokemon with trust issues, each one weirder and weirder and more dramatic than the last. One minute you're dodging a living pile of goo and the next are castle walls growing arms. It's as if the game designers rolled dice to decide what nightmare you'd face next. But here's the thing, Wardner somehow wins you over. It's unfair, unpredictable and occasionally very cruel. But it's also kind of brilliant. The pixel art pops, the soundtrack has that classic arcade magic energy, and every death feels less like a failure and more like a lesson in humility. You start to learn the patterns, time your jumps, and before you know it, you're fist pumping after clearing a level that previously made you want to eat the controller. Wardner doesn't pat you on the back when you mess up, it just stares at you, silently judging like, oh, you died again, did you? That's adorable. And yet, you keep coming back for more. There's something addictive about its madness, like it's whispering one more go, I promise it'll be different this time, and of course, it never is different. So grab your cloak, your wand, and maybe a stress ball because this isn't your average fairy tale rescue, this is Wardner, the game that proves magic is real, but mercy definitely isn't. As always, we'll be looking at the story, the sound, and the gameplay, and a little later on, I'll be letting you guys know my Evercade stats on how long it took me to complete Wardner. But before we do that, let's have a closer look at this Evercade card. Released on April the 28th, 2023, Toaplan Arcade 2 blasted onto the Evercade scene as the 9th arcade cartridge, and this one's straight up pixel explosions. If Toaplan Arcade 1 felt like a warm-up, this sequel is the boss fight, and it's a wild ride through 7 arcade greats, packed with bullets, flames, and the occasional flying demon, just to keep you honest. This cart's lineup is pure retro gold, from the year 1987 right through to 1990. This is Toaplan doing what they do best, making games that hate you just enough to keep you coming back. Every little title here feels handcrafted to test your reflexes, patience, and possibly your blood pressure. The mix of genres keep things fresh, from Wardner's platforming madness to Rally Bike's road rage. It's a buffet of classic arcade punishment. The co-op options here are a huge bonus too. Grab a mate and you'll be laughing, yelling, and maybe blaming each other after a few fiery deaths. Sure, these games are tough, but that's the point. These are the kind of games that made you pump quarters into cabinets until your lunch money ran out, and now you can relive it all without emptying your wallet. Toaplan Arcade 2 is a reminder that the 80s didn't mess around. It's bullets, bosses, and big hair energy from start to finish. Whether you're blasting demons, dodging traffic, or trying not to fall off a platform into lava, this cart delivers pure arcade electricity. For collectors, it's essential. For players, it's a challenge wrapped in nostalgia. For everyone else, it's a polite way of saying, welcome to bullet hell, enjoy your stay. Now, I paid $31.80 for this cart, but we can't say that I paid that because this has 7 games on it. So for the purpose of this review, we need to say that I paid $4.54. meaning for me to get my $10 per hour ratio, I'll need to play and complete Wardner in longer than 27 minutes. And I can successfully say I achieved that, playing and completing this game in 1 hour and 43 minutes, meaning I had $2.62 per hour, which is a massive bargain in my books. I had a play count of 2, a load count of 171, mainly because of the last boss, and a save count of 17. Let's take a look at the story. Once upon a time in a pixelated forest far, far away, a young lad named Dover and his girlfriend Mia decided to go for a leisurely stroll. Sounds calm, right? Think again. Within seconds, a green spectre appeared from nowhere, grabbing Mia like she was the last slice of pizza at a party, and vanished in a puff of magical smoke. And Dover was left standing there, wand in hand, wondering if this was some cruel joke or just another Monday in this 8-bit world. Talk about the stakes being so high that Dover might actually need a ladder just to reach them. Dover's not your typical hero. No, no, no. He has a magical wand, a questionable sense of direction, and a courage the size, well, of a pixel. It's tiny, but it's noticeable, if you squint. Nevertheless, he sets off on a journey through forests, castles, dungeons, and levels that seem to have been designed specifically to ruin his life. Along the way, he dodges fireballs that appear from every conceivable angle, he leaps over pits that look deeper than the developers' budgets, and faces enemies that look like they were brainstormed at 3 AM. Seriously, some of these creatures resembled raccoons, and others looked like angry teapots, and a few seemed to be furniture that had grown sentient just to spite him. Despite all of this, Dover has one advantage: sheer unrelenting optimism, and he hurls fireballs with reckless enthusiasm, sometimes at enemies, sometimes at walls, and sometimes just to see what would happen. And every level brings new surprises, from moving platforms that seem to personally resent his very existence, to flying objects that could only be described as magical household chaos. And the bosses, each one more ridiculous than the last. Like Wardner had raided a Halloween costume store and animated the rejects purely to mess with Dover's sanity. Dover's journey is much about surviving as it is about strategy, and you learn very quickly that timing here is everything. Jump too early and you'll fall into a pit, jump too late and, well, let's just say physics don't favour pixelated heroes. And sometimes, even when he does everything right, the game still says, nah, try again.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
This game is brutal, it was absurd, and somehow it's absolutely hilarious. Finally, after what feels like hours of dodging fire, furniture, and platforms, Dover reaches Wardner's lair. With a perfectly timed jump, a flick of his little wrist, and a dash of sheer luck, he defeats the warlock. Mia is safe and Dover can finally exhale, though probably only for a few seconds before remembering that, yes, he still has to navigate the way home. They then can return to Pixel Town, likely to sip some well-earned hot virtual tea and seriously reconsider their little simple stroll. Through all this chaos, Wardner teaches us a simple lesson. The hero's journey is rarely elegant and often ridiculous, but it's always hilarious. It's about surviving the world where fireballs fly like confetti, furniture has a vendetta, bosses are fashionably absurd, and even the platforms might secretly hate you. So when you fire up this game, grab your wand, pull up your odd socks for good luck, and remember, the stakes are really so high, he should have just packed a rope or something. Like, seriously. So for the odd socks score on the story, I rate the story of Wardner a 6 out of 10. On paper, it has all these ingredients of a classic fairy tale: a brave hero, a kidnapped damsel, an evil villain, and a quest through some strange and dangerous land. Dover, our not-so-average hero, sets off to rescue his girlfriend Mia after she's whisked away by the mischievous and menacing warlock Wardner. It's the kind of once-upon-a-time story that makes you think, ah yes, a simple stroll in the woods, what could possibly go wrong? Spoiler, everything can go wrong. The tale is delightfully absurd in all the right ways. The world is full of magical hazards and odd creatures that feel like they were drawn by someone who had just discovered caffeine. And while the story is straightforward, it has this whimsical fairy tale charm, and it lets your imagination run wild. There are plenty of moments here that make you smile or groan, because as the story leans into fairy tale cliches with damsels, wizards, and enchanted forests, it does it with a cheeky wink, making it charmingly self-aware. That said, the story is almost too simple. Outside of Rescue Mia, there isn't much depth or explanation on who Wardner really is. Still, it keeps that light, whimsical fairy tale tone where the hero's courage and cleverness and occasional good luck are all that really matter. Dover's journey is a classical fairy tale heroism with a humorous twist full of obstacles, dramatic rescues, and a few moments that make you laugh at the absurdity. In the end, the story of Wardner is a charming, playful tale, a bit shallow, a little bit funny, a little bit quirky, and full of moments that are just strange and weird. Dover might not be the most complex hero, and Wardner might not have the deepest motivation, but together they create a tale that's worth experiencing. Let's take a look at the sound. If you thought Wardner was all fireballs and flying furniture, then think again. The music and sound effects are the stars of this show too. From the moment Dover steps into the pixelated forest, the soundtrack sets the tone perfectly. Each level has its own bouncy, playful theme that feels like the fairy tale version of a pep rally. The tunes are cheerful and upbeat, with jaunty melodies that practically make you want to hop along with Dover, which is a good thing, because you'll be hopping quite a lot. It's like the game is saying, everything is dangerous, so use that jump button wisely. The music is charmingly catchy. It's the kind that could get stuck in your head when you put the controller down, and it mixes whimsy with urgency so that even when you're panicking over a tricky jump or dodging a fireball, you can't help but smile because of the cheerful little tunes that accompany every move. There's a playful rhythm to the soundtrack, almost like it's keeping score to your mistakes while cheering you on at the same time. Now, the sound effects here deserve their own round of applause. Fireballs crackle and pop with satisfying energy, and that Dover's jumps have this little cute boing that's so cheerful it almost makes falling into a pit feel like part of the adventure. Enemies squeak, screech, and emit cartoonish noises that make the world feel alive, sometimes chaotic, sometimes hilarious, but always entertaining. And those hazards, every little spike, moving platform, or magical trap has an audio cue that screams, "I'm about to ruin your day, bro," adding a lot more tension and charm at the same time. The combination of the music and sound effects give Wardner a unique personality. The cheerful, whimsical soundtrack contrasts perfectly with the chaotic, sometimes ridiculous action on screen. Flying creatures, magical explosion, and mischievous enemies all have sounds that make the chaos feel playful rather than frustrating, and it's like the game is winking at you, saying, "Sure, I'll try to kill you, but let's have a bit of a blast doing that." Even the bosses have little musical flourishes. Their themes are dramatic, a little over the top, and completely in tune with that fairy tale fantasy of a game. It makes every confrontation feel like a cartoon showdown where Dover is the hero and every fireball is punctuated with perfectly timed audio comedy. In short, the music and sound effects in Wardner aren't just background noise, they're integral to the overall experience. They give the world character and make every jump, every attack, and every hazard satisfying, and reinforce the quirky, chaotic fairy tale charm that makes this game memorable. Playing it feels like stepping into a magical symphony where the instruments are fireballs, flying furniture, and mischievous creatures, all keeping time with Dover's heroic and slightly panicked journey. So for the odd sock score on the sound, I rate Wardner a 5 out of 10. It's right down the middle. It's not over the top amazing, it's not terrible, it's just okay. The music is cheerful and whimsical, like a fairy tale band playing in the background while the chaos unfolds. It fits that quirky world of Dover and Mia perfectly, with jaunty tunes that make you tap your foot or nod your head or even hum along as you dodge fireballs and flying furniture that seem to really be against you. But let's be honest, it's not the kind of soundtrack that makes you leap out of your chair or feel like a heroic wizard ready to save the kingdom. It's more like, hey, everything is kind of fine-ish. And although the sound effects are charming enough, even the boss themes follow the same trend. Playful, quirky, and perfectly in tune with the fairy tale world. It's just not exactly pulse pounding. You're facing evil, but the music is more cheerful parade than epic showdown, and you're encouraged to smile while dodging chaos, not clutch your controller in sweaty terror. So that's why this title earns a 5 out of 10. The sound is straight down the middle, nothing special, nothing bad, and it works. It's fun and it fits this fairy tale vibe, and it adds a touch of charm to the adventure, but it's not going to get your heart racing, make you fist pump, or become the soundtrack of your heroism. It's perfectly average, and honestly sometimes perfectly average is all you need for a quirky little retro game. After all, not every fireball needs a drum solo, right? Let's take a look at the gameplay. Playing Wardner feels like stepping into a children's book, sprinkled with chaos and a generous dose of good luck hero. One of the first things that stands out is the shop system. Yes, that's right, even in a pixelated world full of fireballs and flying furniture, you get to stop and shop like a responsible adventurer. You can buy upgrades, magic spells, and other goodies that feel like lifelines in a game where one hit can mean instant death. And trust me, the game makes you understand that pretty early on. You see, anything that still looks like a harmless puddle of fire, nope, one touch and you're gone. It's like the world has a twisted sense of humor. Yes, that looks safe, now die. The difficulty curve ramps up in a way that's subtle at first, but later hits you like a runaway carry. Early levels make you think, I've got this, I can complete this game with my eyes closed. Then you reach the later stages and suddenly it's like Wardner himself decided to make your life impossible. Precision jumping, perfectly timed dodges, and knowing exactly which hazards are safe or deadly become absolute crucial. And the last boss fight against Wardner himself, don't even get me started. One tiny misstep, just the smallest slip of timing and you're back to square one. For me, that fight alone took over 40 minutes to beat. 40 minutes of carefully weaving left and right, dodging those fireballs only for one teeny-meeny micro mistake to undo everything. And it's brutally absurd and somehow completely addictive at the same time. I also learned a very important lesson about the controls. I started playing this with an arcade stick thinking, yes, I'll feel like a true arcade hero, but no, my character kept ducking at the wrong times because the stick was far too sensitive. 1 second I was ready to jump, the next I was crouching into a fireball, and after some frustration and muttering some curses at my hardware, I switched back to the controller of the Evercade and suddenly I had precision again. And those impossible jumps felt at least slightly manageable. Overall, Wardner's gameplay is a mix of strategy, skill, and punishment wrapped in a quirky fairy tale world. Shops and upgrades give you hope, but one-hit deaths keep your heart pounding, and the difficulty ramps up in a way that makes the final levels feel like you're fighting against the very laws of physics. It's stressful, it's ridiculous, and it's oddly satisfying when you finally clear a stage or defeat a boss. Warning here guys, only play Wardner if you're ready for relentless, perfectly timed platforming that will have you wired up tighter than a clockwork mouse. I might even need a stress holiday after completing this one. Seriously, don't be surprised if you find yourself talking to your controller like it owes you money, or if your cat starts giving you a judgmental look because you're yelling at a flying piece of furniture. And for the odd sock score on the gameplay, I rate Wardner again a 5 out of 10, right down the middle. It's not terrible and it's not amazing, it's just brutally average in the most chaotic way possible. The game has all the classic ingredients of a retro fairy tale platformer, shops where you can buy upgrades, magical spells to help you survive, and hazards that will punish the smallest mistake with a one-hit death. And trust me, the game makes you learn early that one tiny misstep can ruin everything. One of the things that really sticks with you in Wardner is just how relentless the game can be. Even after you've memorized enemy patterns, perfected your jumps and stocked up on every upgrade, there's always this nagging feeling that the game is one tiny misstep away from turning your triumph into tragedy. You start to notice the little absurdities too. Enemies that pop out of the walls like they're late for a coffee break, platforms that vanish faster than your motivation on Monday morning, and those moments where you swear the furniture is moving just to mess with you. The timing here is unforgiving, and it doesn't just challenge your reflexes, it challenges your sanity. There's a rhythm to surviving each stage, and if you're off by even a fraction of a second, the game reminds you immediately. You think, I can handle this, and then a fireball appears out of nowhere like a little gremlin and ruins your entire run. And those bosses, every attack feels like the universe is judging your life choices. Wardner himself is less final boss and more final exam in instant death mechanics. One tiny little slip and it's back to the beginning, forcing you to relive every precious jump and annoying hazard. I still wake up sometimes at night sweating thinking about that exact timing of that one fireball I could not dodge. Honestly, if I was around back in the arcade days, I would have fed so many coins into this machine that I probably would have had single-handedly kept the arcade in business. Each level is a mix of panic, precision, and absurdity, dodging hazards, leaping over pitfalls, and laughing through the chaos. Shops and upgrades provide tiny moments of relief, but really the game thrives on keeping you on edge. And let's be real here. The combination of relentless timing, unpredictable hazards, and quirky enemies make Wardner a strangely addictive adventure. It's the kind of game that frustrates you, really irritates you, and yet you keep coming back for more. You clear a level and think, I survived, only for the next stage to slap you with a flying chair, a fireball, or even an enemy that seems to exist purely to laugh at your suffering. Overall, I give Wardner a 5 out of 10. Like I've said many times in this review, it's right down the middle. It's nothing fantastic, but it's also nothing terrible. I'm genuinely glad I completed it and saw the whole adventure through. There's a certain pride in watching Dover jump, dodge and fire his way across forests, castles and dungeons without accidentally teleporting into a pit of lava, or worse, snapping his own wrists. That said, I don't think anyone will be eagerly diving back into it for a casual replay session. It's the kind of game that makes you feel accomplished but also a little like you just ran a marathon on hot coals. Fun, sure, but very exhausting. The world of Wardner is charmingly chaotic. And then there's the final boss himself. That's right, Wardner. He is actually memorable, but not for the usual reasons. It's not that his evil plot or cunning design that sticks with you, it's the carpal tunnel you may develop from snapping that controller left and right so quickly while firing off attacks. Your precision jumping, dodging and shooting at breakneck speed, and one tiny misstep sends you all the way back to the start. Honestly, I half expected a tiny in-game nurse to appear and hand me a wrist brace mid-battle. Despite all the chaos, Wardner rewards persistence. Completing the game feels like an achievement unlocked in real life. Your reflexes survived, your brain didn't melt entirely, and Dover finally gets a high five from the universe. But let's be real, after all that stress, no one's going to be rushing back for round 2. The game is fun, quirky, and oddly satisfying, but it's also a test of patience, timing, and possibly tendon strength. So in short, Wardner is a quirky, punishing platformer that lands squarely in the middle. Play it for the fun of seeing a fairy tale world turned upside down, or play it for the absurdly challenging final boss. Maybe keep a stress ball handy or a wrist brace, because snapping that controller left and right is gonna leave you with more shade than the game is gonna throw at you. Thank you so much for watching another Evercade Deep Dive Completion Review. Please remember to give me a like, subscribe, and comment down below, or if you're feeling that love, hit the share button, because I'm going for 200 subs before Christmas 2025. I know, I'm a little way off, but hey, a guy can dream, can't he? Remember, I will see you next week. So until then, stay awesome, stay odd, and we'll see you for another Evercade Deep Dive review. See you later, guys.